everyone,
Good morning.
and welcome to our Saturday morning story time. This is the second installment.
Yes.
Last week was Where the Wild Things Are. Now we're doing something just a little bit different. This morning it is Saving Sweetness, another one of our favorites from our acting workshop days with young people. So without further ado, this is by Diane Stanley with illustrations by G. Brian Karras. So let's go, shall we?
Let's do it.
Out in the hottest, dustiest part of town is an orphanage run by a female person nasty enough to scare night into day. She goes by the name of Mrs. Sump. Now, Mrs. Sump, on account of she looks like something the cat drug in and the dog wouldn't eat. And you see, I heard that Mrs. Sump doesn't much like seeing the orphans resting or having any fun, so she puts them to scrubbing the floor with toothbrushes, even the ittiest bittiest orphan, Sweetness. So one day, Sweetness hit the road. I found out right away because Mrs. Sump came busting into Loopy Lil Saloon, hollering like a banshee.
Sheriff! That provoking little that dear child Sweetness done escaped. Disappeared. And I'm fit to be tied worrying about that poor thing all pink and helpless, wandering, lost in the plains and stepping on scorpions and falling into holes and such. You gotta bring her back alive. Safe before she runs into Coyote Pete.
Well, that did it. Scorpions is one thing, but Coyote Pete, well, he's as mean as an acre of rattlesnakes and the toughest, ugliest desperado in the West. So I got my star and I buckled on my gun belt and I headed west. It was hot as blazes. Seemed like the wind was too tired to blow. Then it got hotter. Well, hours passed, and what with the sun beating down on me, I commenced to feeling thirsty. That was when I realized that it would have been prudent to bring along some water. After some more hours, I begun to stagger with the thirst, and the next thing I knowed, I was plopped down in the dirt. Fortunately, I was in the shade of a big cactus, so I decided to stay there a spell and catch my breath. There I is walking along, and there's that big old cactus. Next thing I knew, I felt this cool, delicious water trickling over my tongue. I popped open my eyes, and there, just a shadow against the sun, was Sweetness in her canteen. As soon as I watered up enough to make words come out of my mouth, I said, "Why, Sweetness, thank heaven I've saved you." She said,
"Yes, sir. Thank you."
"And that little orphan is just as cute as a speckled pup under a wagon, wouldn't you say?" "Now, I come to take you home," says I.
"I don't want to go home. I'm tired of scrubbing floors with a toothbrush."
"Well, what can't be cured must be endured, Sweetness." Now, I thought that was very wise advice, but the orphan didn't seem to think so, because she lit off like she was trying to catch yesterday. And there she goes. Off she goes. Let's see what happens now. This day was going from bad to worse. Now, I was going to have to save that orphan again. Also, if you know anything about the desert, you know that when the sun goes down in all its glory, it starts to cool off, and then it gets right cold. Also, the snakes come out. So I was headed off after Sweetness, all shivering and wishing I had brought a blanket. Now, I got to feeling a trifle hungry, too. Seems like I was wandering around among the snakes and the rocks for a coon's age, till I was so tuckered, and I just curled up a hush, and I went to sleep. Pretty soon I commenced to dream that I was home with my own dear sweet mama, sitting around the fire all toasty warm, and she was cooking something nice. Then I woke up, and there was the orphan, and a campfire, and that little tyke, she was roasting marshmallows.
Want one?
Well, that don't be all. Now look here, Sweetness, I says to her while I was gobbling down them marshmallows. This is the second time I done saved you, and I very much appreciate it if you'd stay safe. So we're gonna mosey on back to that there orphanage right now. Well, I'll be darned if she didn't start to cry.
Don't you like me?
Why, sure I do, honey. Ain't I saved you twice? Hey, there ain't nothing to cry about. She went right on bawling.
I ain't got no mom. I ain't got no pa. All I got is Mrs. Soap and a toothbrush.
Well, ain't no way to fix that. Listen, you get adopted. Then she smiled up in my face like she's expecting me to say something particular. It's too deep for me. Sure is a dilemma was all I could come up to say, at which she throwed up her little hands in the air and she stomped off into the night. Dang, says I, now you quit that. You really fry my patience. But I was going to bring that orphan back if it hair-lipped the governor. There she goes, running off again in the nighttime in the desert. Ooh, boy. So there was the sun rising over the plains, and there was I, feeling like something that was chewed up and spit out, trying to figure out one little orphan out in the big wild west. Now, here comes the exciting part. I had gone fur enough to work up a good sweat, so I ambled over to a big rock so I could stand in the shade. That's when I heard a sound. Just a little click. Sort of like a gun being cocked. I turned around, and what did I see? But Coyote Pete, loaded for bear and giving me a look that would freeze a cat. I had to think fast. Now, Coyote Pete, you can see by the star on my chest that I's here to uphold the law. Now, you can't go around shooting folks and scaring orphans, and I's here to arrest you. Now, I don't seem to think that he heard me, because just as cool as you please, he aimed his six-shooter right at my silver star. There's me, and there's him. But notice up in the corner, boys and girls, something's fixing to happen. Listen here, hamster brain, you're riding for a fall. You put down that there gunner, I'm going to knock you in the middle of next week. I'm going to snatch you bald-headed. I'm going to lock you up. I'm going to throw away the key. And you know what he done? He made a sound kind of like a thunk. And he fell over backwards, laid out cold like a sack of feed. I scared him that bad. And who should show up right then but Sweetness? So she took off our higher ribbons, and we tied that varmint up bulletproof and pig tight, don't you know. Now, Sweetness, I told her, I ain't having no more of this running away. You can't go roaming around this here prairie with outlaws all over the place. They too dangerous. How many times has I got to save you?
If you was as smart as you are brave, you would figure it out.
What you leading up to?
You will figure out how to save me for good.
I ask again, what are you leading up to? So I chewed on it a while longer. Did it have something to do with adopting?
You're getting it.
I started to get a kind of pretty picture up in my head regarding me and little Sweetness in a couple of rocking chairs by the fire. Well, sweet child, I knows I's a rough character, but if you was to agree to it, I could adopt you. She fell on me like Grandma on a chicken steak. Then me and Sweetness rolled that varmint Coyote Pete all the way back to town. Then we got there. There's we is. All right now. Now here come the ending. That very day I done signed them adoption papers. Then that precious child told me about the 7 other orphans and how these toothbrushes was worn down to little nubs with all that scrubbing. So I's adopted them too. And here we are. It's a nice family portrait. So I bet you're wondering about Coyote Pete and Mrs. Sump. So let's get to it. As for Quixote Pete, we put him in jail, and I got a big reward for bringing that varmint to justice. After a few years, they let him out and they put him in the custody of a parole officer. One guess who was the parole officer? That's right, Miss Sump, who, as you can see, was out of the orphan business. And I don't know how she done it, but she got that desperado to marry her. And now all he does is scrub the floor. And I can tell you, he jumps when she hollers frog. And that's the truth. The end. I sure do like a happy ending. Well, I hope you had fun. We certainly had fun. And the next couple weeks, we are doing books by request from last week. So we ordered them up. Here's Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson. That's next week. That's our good friend Kevin Paul. And coincidentally, Kevin was on our show Into the Outer Realms, wonderful guest yesterday afternoon. So check that out on the Into the Outer Realms page. And our friend Linda suggested I Must Have Bobo. And you like a good sock monkey, huh?
I love sock monkeys.
So these are the books. If you have any other requests, let us know. Thank you so much. We want to say hi to Mark. We want to say hi to Liam. And we want to say hi to Phil. And Mark said howdy. And Liam said howdy. And Phil said how do. So everybody was playing along. So happy Saturday, everyone. If you enjoyed this and you know some little tacks, you might want to share it with them. Stuck at home. And remember, wear a mask and stay safe when you're around other people. They will thank you. All right now, because we don't want no orphans or anything like that happening. All right, take care. We'll see you next time.